Hi guys, it's Designer here. Again, I'm not going to edit any of these videos because I can't be bothered. So, so today we're going to be looking at some uh, CSS, IDs, classes, and divs. So if I go to the website right now, you'll see that we have three headings. Each heading is basically black. It's not as it says red, blue, or purple, because we have not yet applied CSS to this raw HTML, and that's the reason we call it raw, because it doesn't have any CSS on it. So what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. So you can think of it like if HTML is your house, and CSS is basically the interior, the coloring of the walls and stuff like that, the windows, the doors. But HTML is the main base of that house. So before getting into CSS, I'm just going to specify some stuffs here. So when you use CSS, you will be using a lot of divs. Basically, a div is like a section. So this heading have a section, this one has its own section, this one has a section too. So for HTML tags, you can give them IDs or classes, and I'll show you what are those when we get to CSS. But basically, let's say I have a heading. So this is just a normal H1, so I can give it a name or an ID, and I can also give it a class. Basically, a class is if I have uh, more than one object but with the same name. So if I have like three headings with the same class and three names, and same names too, those will be using classes for the same name. And if I only have one heading with a specific use and a specific name, um, yeah, I have to use an ID, and I cannot use more than one ID that has the same name, because that'll construct some errors. So that's why we have IDs and classes. So one of the things that I did not specify in the past videos is how to give your website a icon right here. So how to do that? First of all, you need an icon, which is this little link here. Also, this is a comment. You can do that by using an exclamation point, two dashes, and you can comment. Basically, a comment doesn't affect the code in any way, just lets you know that there is a comment, which is like a sticky note. So if I go for the head here and type link, the relationship of this link is going to be icon, and the href, which is like the source, the image, the link of the image, or the path of the image, and I refresh, it's going to be right here. Now we have an icon. So okay, back to CSS. So in CSS, there are three different methods that you can use CSS on your HTML. There is external CSS, which is the most used. There is internal CSS, and there is inline CSS. So let's start with, let's say, inline CSS. So inline, basically CSS, but inside an HTML tag. So if I type style is equal to quotation marks, those quotation marks can have CSS. For example, background is going to be equal to blue, and I refresh, see here the heading is blue. So this is inline CSS. It's pretty inefficient and it makes your code look messy and weird and unorganized. So we don't use that. There is also something else which is known as um, internal CSS, which is in the same HTML file. If I go here and use the style tag, anything in between that will be considered as CSS. So let's say I want to make this this div red. I would point to the ID using a hashtag and the name of the ID, which is container. And then I'd press tab to leave a little space here and I'll open brackets. So inside these brackets, I can add CSS properties, which is like the color, the background color, the width, the height, whatever. So in this case, I'm going to use background. I don't have to use background dash color because if I use background, it will know that I'm pointing to the color of the background. And a column with the name of the color or the hex code or whatever, and a semicolon to end this line here. If I go here, the div is colored in this color. So I pointed to this div here. As can you see, we have 3 divs here, all of these divs. So I cannot just do div here, because therefore it's going to be coloring every single div in that HTML file. Anyway, more on that after we get to external CSS, which is the most used CSS on almost every website in the internet. So how do I use external CSS? So external CSS is pretty good because you keep the HTML code in a file and the CSS code in another file, so stuff doesn't get too big, too messy, and it's a good way to keep your stuff organized. So first of all, in this same file here, this file, I will create a CSS cascading style sheet. So I'll call it style. You can call it whatever really here. And I have to add the CSS file extension, which is .css. Now I have myself a cascading style sheet, but the thing is, if I let's say color all divs to green, it's not going to work because this style sheet here is not linked to the HTML file. So how do I link it? It's kind of close to how you link an icon. You'll need to open, of course, in the head tag, you'll open brackets, use the link tag. The relationship here is going to be style sheet. And the source, or the href, it's going to be the path of the style sheet. So it's in the same folder, so I don't need to point to any other folders. And I just specify the name of the file, suck.css, and I close the brackets. Now everything is green because in that CSS file I specified that. So now back to classes and IDs. So you know that if I, of course, this heading is inside a div, this one too, and this one, so I cannot color every div in a specific color without knowing which div I want to color. That's why we use classes and IDs. An ID is something that is special, only a unique ID. A class is 2 or more, you know, like 2 things or more. So if I want to color both of these, since they have the same class name here, I can go for my CSS. To point to a class, you need to use dot. what's up, code? Open the brackets, the curly brackets actually. Give it a color. The background, I want it to be set to blue. And I close this line here using this semicolon. Now, both of these are going to be colored in blue because both of these have the same class name. But if I change one of the class names here, only one is going to be colored in blue because I pointed to to this class name only in CSS. So let me change that back. Now it's going to be purple. So in a case where I want a color here, and a color here, I need to actually use IDs because this is unique, this is unique, and this is unique. So I'll do that. I'll name or give an ID to this div, and it's going to be, actually I'm not going to give it to the div. Screw the divs right now. I'm going to give those to the headings themselves. So if I put an ID to this heading here, red, an ID to this heading here, blue, and this heading here, purple. Now each of these headings, they have a unique ID. I can point to them in the CSS using the hashtag. So you point to an ID using an hashtag. So if I point to blue, open curly brackets, I'll color it. So the difference between background and color, the color is going to color the actual text, but the background is going to be coloring the background of the text. So I'll color this blue because the ID is blue and the text is blue. I'll do the same for the red and the purple. And here you go. So that's been a little bit on CSS, and we'll continue in the next video. Thanks for watching.